My guest is making his second appearance on the pod. He's a New York-based comedian and the winner of the Boston Comedy Festival. I'm excited to welcome Wilfred Padua.
Hey, it's me again.
What's the name? You still have the podcast, right?
No, I've
Is it
my
on
projects are over.
Really?
Yeah, it just became a lot, and we were only we only had like 1 foot in the door, trying to. We were half-assing it. That's what I'm trying to say. We're half-assing it, and we all were just like, well, if we're not really in love with this project, let's
Podcasting's hard, dude.
Yeah. I don't. It's a lot more work than you want it to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to make it. It's fun being a guest on a podcast.
Yeah.
But if I don't have a producer for it, it's too much work.
That's what's the important thing. I mean, especially we've been doing video, and it's once you start adding video in addition to audio and
you have to edit the clips.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
What are you using, Adobe?
No, we're using, Mike Mazzalotti and Nolan Culver. Yeah. They both, I think our levels are good. They both run Third Wheel Podcast Studio.
Yeah. And
initially we were me and the guy I had set this up, we're producing it all, and it was just crazy intensive. So we just do the files and send it to Third Wheel, and they cut it up for us. And
it's for the video too?
Yeah.
And then you just tell them where you want
start? If there's specific things we want edited out, or it's kind of tricky because we do 2 different episode formats. So this would be a bonus episode, but we initially were doing story focused stuff. So each guest would come on, bring a story, but during the pandemic, I was just bored and started fucking around. So every other episode we just do kind of a conversational with comics or whoever I can get on. So and it's nice to have a break from just a rigid format. But yeah, they cut it up and it's way easier. I mean, the video is the hardest part. And
I've gotten better at Premiere because that's a part of being a comedian now is posting shit on Instagram. So I've taught myself how to edit, and I can get down to editing a video and a minute-long video in 20 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So it just is not a skill that I care to have. It's crazy that I have to.
Dude, we got to talk about this a little bit because it's just I've been here. This is I think day 10 or something, day 11, and I've just seen stuff out here that I had expectations about coming out here, and we had talked ahead of time, but some of the things I completely underestimated and then overestimated other stuff. I mean, it feels like New York has sort of become what LA used to be, where you need to be famous to get on stage or very fucking good at comedy and have a reputation of that. And you had told me in the past that New York's not the feeder system that it used to be. They're the development system that it used to be. And it's the people that I see doing comedy or have seen, I know I haven't seen everybody or anything like that, but I've just seen a lot of people that are famous on TikTok or Instagram doing comedy that don't do stand up.
They stink. Yeah. It happens a lot. There's I think that yes, no matter what, clout is going to get you on stage or get you it's going to get you on stage because people think that that's going to get asses in the seats. I have none of that. Yeah, somehow I still am doing fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's more just being around and and being reliable in terms of being a funny person on stage and being a reasonable hang and not bumming everyone out when I show up.
Yeah.
That carries a long way, I think. But that's coming from a guy who isn't famous and is somehow still making his way through the city.
Yeah. When you what has changed about your approach from when you got here versus now?
I don't. Actually, I was just talking about this on a podcast with other Seattle comics yesterday, and I am not as desperate anymore, and so like I don't feel like I have to kill all the time. So I'm not like afraid to work on new stuff when I go to whatever comedy club.
Yeah.
Because I know that like if this moment flops, I can get it back. So there's a little bit more faith in my skill set. But also, if I just end up bombing in this set, like it doesn't. No one's gonna be like, "Well, Wilfred sucks."
Yeah. Well, you have like the built up.
I have a reputation that I've already
This,
cultivated.
it's not like a one and done thing.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, just being out here, like I did the stand like 2 nights ago, and I did upstairs and down, and like I felt that, like where you're going up and like you don't want to, like you want to leave a good impression.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, at least visiting here, I just have been in showcase mode like the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like struggling with New York, where I'm like, I don't know how you build material where like that's one of my biggest questions for you is like, how do you build time when a lot of the shows are so bad? Like
you, when the shows are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you have to go to a show with, I don't know if all your listeners are comics. This is going to be very inside baseball.
I think like there's a blend of, I don't know. I don't
They care about it, probably.
I give a shit.
But you have to go to each show with like understanding what you can get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So like tonight's show, which is I'm still going to do it because it's literally on my way home.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the busiest show. It's probably going to be like, I don't know, maybe 10 people in the audience. It's something where I can develop new material and figure out. And one of the things that I've been trying to push myself to do is have fun regardless of the situation. So not having to rely on the energy of the audience to carry myself through the set.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm working on tonight. So you go to your shows with an intention for how to develop. So whether it's a new joke, whether it's a new skill set that you can take onto the stage for future, and each show can provide because there's such a variety of what New York has to offer. You've got the shows where there's 10 people. You've got the shows where you've got open mics where it's only comedians, all the way to, doing a set at the Cellar.
What do you, because I've done a few mics here, is it even worth your time to go? Or like what purpose does it serve to go to a mic in New York?
I haven't done I've done one mic.
This was what Chase DeRusso said too, by the way.
I did it when did I want to say in October. But I also didn't intend to do the mic.
Yeah.
I had friends that were at the mic. It wasn't far from my place. I went over there, and then they're like, "Wilfred, do you want to get up in this next group?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?"
Yeah, I'm here already.
I've got 3 minutes of new things and it's more about like I don't know, figuring out the wording of a joke, the rhythm of a joke, or something like that. Or but also I was when they threw me up, it was like, did you go to a mic where like they did the group system?
Not in this. It was at the Pair, so it was just like you sign up and fucking just wait your turn. And it was 100%. I mean, it's you're from Seattle, so you know what Seattle was like.
Yeah.
And like
it's 100% comics is in the room,
here,
right?
yeah. But like Seattle, it's almost like all of our mics are like mini shows, like
they're
in
shows,
terms of, they're, and it's so everything seems to be like pushed up a level here.
Here, so there's a lot of mics where it's a bucket system.
Mm-hmm.
You put your name in the bucket, and then you get your name called in a group.
Yeah.
So it's like, here's the next 7 comics. It's very rigged. It's always rigged. When I moved here, I was 5th group all the time. It was miserable because you're waiting like 2 hours to do like 3 minutes, and there have been a few times where they're like, "Oh, we got to wrap it up because there's a show after this." So the last group gets 50 seconds. Like what?
And you're paying too. Like
no, I never went to the.
Oh, you didn't do that. Yeah.
I was just like my mind was blown. But in October I went to this mic and they were like, Wilfred, do you want to go up now? And it was like the second group was happening.
Yeah.
I was like,
well,
yeah,
if you're
why
here,
not? I'm here. Let's just do. I already know what 3 minutes is like needs to be worked out.
Yeah.
Also, I don't have to respect the light.
Yeah.
So, I just went out there, had some fun. It's also, I think a mic also helps with, like that skill set of like having fun regardless of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you have to have a good time, even if the audience is having a bad time.
Yeah. Let's keep talking about that, but I do have to just mention we're on YouTube. So if you are watching us, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, or notifications bell so you don't miss our content. If you got a question for Wilfred or myself, throw it in the comments. Doing that.
We're live?
No, not live, but just like I'll track you down if.
Okay.
We're gonna be here. Yeah.
This communication is not gonna happen unless you go directly to me. So follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, do that. I'll get all your stuff too later in the episode, but. What the fuck were we just talking about?
Mike's fun.
Having fun.
Yeah.
So I feel like my development has been like backwards because I feel more comfortable
Is this a cool position to sit in? I just want to make sure that I look cool.
Spread out, opened up, open body language.
Let's
you're I'm sure it's fine as long as I can see your face.
I'm insecure about that, so go ahead with your question.
I like developed backwards. So like what I've been struggling with is like I'm used to writing material and then going and doing regular like club sets and kind of getting that feedback loop of like where a joke is and like the different levels of like how a joke is hitting. So like if you got 5 minutes of material, what is the best joke in that 5 minutes? And how does it play across like different audience types? And here, I feel like it's almost like you're supposed to just know what jokes are your best. Like,
no, I don't think so. I don't think anyone really understands what's funny until they spend years doing stand-up. Like I already know I have this joke that I'm gonna do tonight that isn't done. I already know it's not done. I already know that what I'm presenting to them is probably gonna bomb, but I'm just gonna try to talk my way to the end, even though I know that that's not a way that I usually develop jokes.
Yeah.
But I know that the idea is funny, but it took me what year am I in? Year 11 of doing stand-up to understand what I can bring to the stage and how like everything that I bring into the stage I know has an opportunity,
has legs.
Yeah, like because I'm also, that's another thing about being in New York and being careful about like how you present yourself is I'm writing my jokes even harder now before they get onto the stage. I'm finishing a joke. I'm not going onto the stage and be like, here's an idea. Because I just know that like I want to present myself in a better fashion.
So how do you do that though? If you're not getting like pen and paper or like
just finish the thought, just like you write any other joke.
Yeah.
Like if you were, why? How do you write?
It's changed a lot. Like when I initially started, I think joke by joke it's different. Like for certain stuff, like for really short poppy stuff, sometimes it's just like I don't know if this is like if it has enough of a left turn with a bigger room to like really pop. Whereas like a longer kind of story or like expanded joke, like I need to flush that out in front of audiences, like and get the beats down, like and seeing how far I can take something too. And that's where like I feel
think you're gonna figure those things out as you continue to do stand up.
Okay.
Like that's just stuff that you like I know I can do that in my living room now. And I can figure out the rhythms, and then like maybe you throw like there's a tag that gets like really that gets thrown in as I make it more conversational when I bring it to the stage.
Yeah.
Like you throw in the tags and the extra lines and you get to read the audience and be like, oh, you can see their faces, so you can be like, oh, they need more clarification, so let's throw in a little bit more info right now. But the general idea of it, most of the joke, I can just do that in my living room, and then it's just going back to like fine tuning it and like making sure that everything's tweaked correctly as I'm presenting it.
So how did you get to that point though?
Being smart and cool and just doing stand up for a long time and like having understanding.
Say that into the camera. Just as smart and cool.
They got me. Smart, cool. Just doing stand up for a while because I've been doing it for a long ass time. Having an understanding of like the joke format that I'm like accustomed to, studying stand up, seeing other people's like structure that they fall into, kind of reminding myself of like all the various like go-to moves that you can do while you're writing. It's all just having an understanding of like what jokes are and everything.
It feels like since I've been out here, like New York is, I'm used to like a lot of time by myself, which I'm sure it fucking shows just like my mannerisms. Like I've been around more people than I like have. I mean, for the past year, probably in the past 2 weeks, and like some of that's COVID, but other it's just New York is New York, and like, do you ever feel like it fucks with like your voice or your point of view being here because you are around so many artists and you are around like so much comedy, and like because I feel like when I'm watching a lot of shows out here, whether it's clubs or like indie shows or the stuff I've seen, like there's like a New York sound kind of, there's a like repeating themes, and I don't know if that's just like that many people doing comedy close, like in close proximity, or a New York thing, or
there was a while. Did I talk about this with you? I remember saying this in like last week. There was a while where I moved to New York and I was like, I have to be a comedian like a New York comedian. Mm-hmm. When I moved here, one of the observations I saw was everyone was just joke. They go on stage and then first thing they say is the first line of their first joke. There's no like setting the table or anything. It's just let's just jump in, and then the last thing they say is the last joke. Yeah, it's 100% scripted. And then I was, it took me a little bit. So I think it took me almost a whole year to realize that I went on the road to Boston this one weekend, and I was just free. Just felt free. I was like, oh, let's just fucking riff. Let's have a good time. And I felt free because there weren't any New York eyes on me. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I had a great weekend. The whole weekend was wall to wall great. And I was like, why the fuck aren't I just being me? So I came back. After that, I was like, we're going to be loose now. Mm-hmm. And figured out how to be me, and like figured out my own, like not really figured out my own voice in terms of like what I'm writing, but like my persona on stage and who I am on stage. And that still needs some tweaking. Yeah. But it made me, New York has kind of grounded me in who I am as a comedian. Mm-hmm. That like the way I'm doing stand-up is worth the damn. So there are a lot of voices around that I'm like, but it's all like stuff that like I still go to watch. I try to go to a show last night to study because I really wanted to watch this comic. But like, so you use that to inform you. You're still the one who's putting out material though.
So it's just noise. Like you have to cut through the noise to find like
kind of. I mean, it's just everything is informative. It's like reading a book. Like you take in the information and then you can believe some of it. You can it's Reddit or whatever.
Yeah.
You can believe what you want to believe. You can use what you can, and throw out the rest.
I never really thought of. It's funny saying study stand up. Like it makes sense, but I just never thought about it in those terms. Like, is that pretty like common out here? Like where people are going show like because I would go to stand up just to be entertained. Like I don't know if I would go to like.
But it's not. You're usually not studying is like a thing that you have to do. Like you have to see the same person over and over again to really like figure out whatever is happening. I like last night I wanted to see Shane Gillis because I haven't seen Shane since his special came out, and he does something that I can't figure out on stage. So I just want to go and figure out what that thing is that he's doing that I'm not. I saw Tom Segura 2 weeks ago at Madison Square Garden, and I was like, "There's something like," and it was the same thing. It's like, what's he doing that I'm not doing? There's a skill set. There's an essence to him that is that makes him a much better comic than me.
Yeah.
Like where I'm focusing on one aspect of this thing, he's got something else that's happening.
So almost like a basketball player watching like NBA players and being like, what are they like watching film of them to like break down what they're doing well.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
And it's easier to, you get more of an understanding of it if you see the person live.
Oh, for sure.
Because there's more, you get the reaction, and it's the real game. Like seeing someone live is like playing against someone, as opposed to like just watching them play.
Yeah. Like because you're in the audience yourself.
Because you're in the audience, like I look at, I was actually just writing about how like comedy is like basketball. You have to be Kyrie Irving. Like it's like there's moves that you pull, but everything is like it's a like there's a freedom to it. There's looseness to like how Kyrie plays. Like the way that if you watch Kyrie play, it's like not like there's no rigidity to it. There's a lot of times where he like dribbles he'll dribble and it looks like he's losing control of the ball, but he's the only one that knows where the ball is going. Yeah. Or he knows how to lose control and then like get it back before the other 9 people on the court. And I think that's what basketball is. It's like, or that's what stand-up is. It's like there's moves, but in between there's this like releasing control, regaining control. There's a lot of like this is like the fucking dumb. This sounds so like I'm listening to myself talking like, what? Who the fuck is this guy?
No, I like.
But there's a fluidity that you have to have while being on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I find really interesting is there's a lot of comics that kind of go that like character route, where like they're not themselves on stage, like the persona that you were just talking about. They go someone different than who they are as a person. And to me, whenever I see that, I feel like it's like putting on armor. Like you want to present yourself in a certain way so that the crowd can't like make any criticisms of you or whatever. And so like I don't want to like shit on alt comedy, but like I've seen that in like a decent amount of alt comedy. And to me, when I see that, it's like they're protecting themselves. They're avoiding that criticism by like being something other than themselves. Whereas like if you're that persona, like part of what comes with that persona is flaws. Like it's not perfect, and there's things about you that you don't like, or like things about you that other people probably don't like, but being honest about that then like elevates where you can take stuff with an audience, like because you're building that trust. And I think that that's sort of that looseness that you're talking about, where like you can't take things there without giving something up. Like that two-way, it's like a friendship almost. Like I'm not going to tell you a secret if you don't tell me a secret type thing.
Well, I think this is something I've been thinking about, and I don't know if it's fully related. I've been in therapy for a long ass time. And I've just been like, oh, the way that I can get better as a comedian is through therapy, because like you're not presenting your full self on stage. You're not. I mean, this is a whole other philosophical thing. Like, how do you present your full self? Like, that's a conversation that is beyond this. But on stage, you're presenting a version of you, and in my mind, I'm trying to present my best version of me. Not the most likable, not the most like the funniest version of me. In my mind, that's the best version of me. So how do I through therapy and through like meditation and all that, like wholeness dumb shit, you have to wellness dumb shit, that's how you get to being a better comedian. That's an experiment that I'm going through right now. Because it's not just about jokes, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I'm just thinking, like, I don't know if that logic is, like, a little flawed, right? Because, like, I think in order to get to that place of wellness, you have to, like, be doing it to be well, right? Like, not to be a better comic. Like, it's like that kind of mind trick.
But it's also,
I think it's a benefit that comes with that. But like,
my life is comedy.
Okay.
I unfortunately have very little happening outside of it. So to be a better comedian is to be a better person for me.
Yeah.
Right now. Sure, like, yeah, I want to be a better person. Like, I want to be a better friend. I want to be, like, more, practice mindfulness a little bit more in my, like, day-to-day interactions.
Isn't that kind of fucking insane, though? No offense. Like, you're Wilfred, who happens to do comedy. Like, you're Wilfred, who is a comedian, but you're still Wilfred.
Sure.
And, like, in order, like, if it's comedian first versus you first, then, like, is that even you on like, and this is like a philosophical question, but like, that's one of the things I've hung up on.
Who am I and all that shit is like, that's too, like, I'm not really asking that. Like, I have a sense of who I am, but it's like to define it on like a podcast or like in to anyone is like so fucking, or like on a Hinge profile or something. That's so stupid to have to like try to boil yourself down. But I guess it's hard for me to, like, I've gone through so much to pursue comedy that comedy's all that I'm putting, that I'm like, sure, I have other interests, and like there are things that I'm like cultivating outside of comedy, but comedy is my number one thing to focus on. I've given up my entire life in Seattle, relationship, I had a dog, like I was living with someone.
And how do you feel as a result of that now? Because like I told you this when I came out here, like, I have so much respect for like the work you're doing. Like, anybody watching or listening, like, you have no idea. Like, I go out every night in Seattle. Like, I'm on the top end of like people that are putting in work. And I write every day. Like, I practice this thing as hard as I can. But compared to like the life that you're living out here, it's no comparison. And some of the people that I've met out here, like, it's the level of sacrifice. Like, there have been some things where I'm like, this. I mean, I met some dude. He's like, yeah, I know these guys that collect cans, so that like they're not working day jobs. Like they're doing this so they can do comedy at night. I'm like that.
Cans?
Yeah, and
That's
like
that's very far.
It's
That's
dude.
I don't
he's
think
like
that person is going like. There are these like stories like, yeah, I lived in a van and whatever. And I'm like, you can live in an apartment, and be relatable to people, and like have it. I have a job, and I have like I scrap my money together to survive, and you know, some of it's comedy, some of it's like writing, some of it's like moving furniture.
Yeah.
And so like you just work your ass off, but I think like collecting cans, that's a little far.
Dude, but sometimes then you see it like work too, like Hans Kim, like he was fucking opening for Rogan like in Jacksonville at a live event, and he's been on the podcast, and like I think with this, like everybody's path is different, and when I look at New York, like I have a lot of respect for what's happening out here. I don't know, like the barriers to entry seem so high, and like what I actually like, what's important to me in comedy, like for me personally, I think being on stage is like the most important thing to me, and it seems like here it would take a really long time to like get established and to do that. Like I don't know if I'm ready to like make that decision, I guess.
It's I think there are people that that started here, and like I've like come across like people who are like in their first 2 years of comedy, and they, you know, they're doing the open mics, and then their friends in the open mics they would throw shows, and then you have your own little clique, your own little scene within the entire community. So that's a way to develop, and then things just like slowly trickle. No matter what, it's going to take a long time because you don't know that many people. This is not your community. You have to figure out how to establish yourself as a figure in this community.
Yeah.
And you're not just like trying to be some community member. You want to be like someone who is active in the community, not just someone who lives there.
Yeah.
You know, so and that takes a lot of like FaceTime and like being out at shows just to hang out. It took me months just hanging out at shows. And then one time I was on the show. It was my buddy Tommy. Wasn't even that close of friends with him at the time. Barely knew him. I was just there hanging. He's like, Wilfred, so-and-so's running late. Do you want to do a spot? I was like, absolutely. That was like back, and I was like in kill mode. So I was like, I know what 10 minutes to do. So I did that.
Yeah.
And actually that became the spot. The fact that I got thrown up there, after that, for like the next couple months, I was just thrown up a lot.
Yeah.
Cause like, people, I think were saying my name when I wasn't around. I don't know. Something happened like in that moment because I started getting like thrown up at like maybe 50% of the shows that I show up to.
So the skills that you had when you came out here did translate. Like if you were able to kill and do that, right? Like the tools that you had to get you that 10 minutes or whatever, like
I was prepared to do, like one, you know, I was in my fucking, you know, army uniform ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I and so it just so happened that it was a show where I did well.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, so there definitely was some, I mean, 8 years of preparation before I moved here doesn't go to nothing.
Mm-hmm. When you were in Seattle, though, were you like hitting it really hard?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like on a given week, what were you doing? Like,
usually I was probably on the road like twice a month, doing like, you know, whatever small town or a weekend in like Alberta or something like that. And then, but I remember I was every once in a while I drop in on the Monday open mic at the Comedy Underground.
Mm-hmm.
Was that around? Were you around for that?
Yeah. Before it died.
Every once in a while I'd drop in there. I'd usually, like, if I wasn't out of town, Dave and Angela would let me go on stage, and I would feature usually. Because they never paid their features.
Yeah.
I'd get to do 20 minutes every weekend
Mm-hmm.
on whatever night I showed up. So I was doing stand-up, like, probably doing like 7 spots a week.
Yeah, it's different now in Seattle, I think. Like, it's when next time you come back, like, and are there for a week, you need to, like, hang out and, like, cause it's cool to see, like, when the pandemic happened, people came out of it, there was just this surge, and there's just new blood that's in the scene, and it's like
more shows.
There's more shows, there's more venues, there's more comics that are actually, like, doing it and, like, doing it every night and, like, going for it and getting better. And it's like, it's the first time I've been in Seattle comedy where there isn't, like, massive infighting.
Oh, that's great.
And, like,
I mean, that shit was bound to end at some point anyways, because all of that, like, we have to cancel so-and-so shit is just going to, like, in show business, it makes people realize you're not someone that people want to work with.
Yeah.
If you're throwing, like, sure, like, men shouldn't be doing the shit to women that, like, they've done in show business. But the unfortunate side of being a whistleblower is that people don't want to work with whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Now, Seattle is a little different of a story because you got people blowing a whistle on nothing.
At times, yeah. And then it's a really, like, difficult problem. Like, I don't think that problem's ever going away in, not just in show business, like,
in the world.
Yeah. It's just, and it sucks because, like, when I hear that, there's part of me too that's like, well, what about the person that fucking actually had something happen to them? And then you know, there's that side of it too. And it's strange to me out here. Like, I'm not from Seattle originally. Like, I've lived in 10 states and said that on this podcast a million times. So anybody listening is probably a fucking douchebag. But every time I leave Seattle, and I do the road quite a bit, like, and been to Minnesota, Arizona, like Chicago, like, doing comedy in those places, like, every time I'm like, fuck, it's a bubble out there. Like, I forget that. But I also, like, am really thankful for being able to look at my material more empathetically. Like, I think I've seen a lot of comics out here where it's like they aren't thinking about their audience when they're telling jokes. And, like,
oh yeah,
there's a difference between saying a joke to be, like, controversial versus saying a joke because it's funny to you, you know? And
you see that more out here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also see language that, like, would never be used in Seattle, like slurs. But I think it's based in, like what's crazy to me here is I've done, I don't know, 12 shows, 15 shows, and I've been in front of a different type of audience every night.
Yeah.
And I think one of the benefits of that is like, if you're the edgelord that's going to do racial material, go to fucking Bushwick and do that joke to the person that it's going to hurt. And then you're probably not going to do that joke anymore. So I've seen, like, I mean, you might still do the joke, but, like,
I mean, I still do my jokes aren't nice. I did have a friend say that I was saying that I'm not woke enough to get certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you are woke. It's just people aren't listening to what you're saying. What I say is actually, like, my setups are always very, like, pretty conscious of shit.
Yeah. But
I'm here to be funny, so my punchline isn't like, and white people. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's a punchline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to show that, like, yeah, here's something that I think about. but here's also a wrong way to think about it or whatever.
Yeah. What I mean,
you have to make a turn.
Yeah.
There's surprise to comedy. So I think that
here's the thing. If you got to the funny, not because you were trying to be controversial, but because you were going for the funny, like that's different than being like, oh, this is controversial and it could work here. Like if when you were writing that joke or going down that thought process, like you came to this thing in a natural, funny way.
Sure.
It goes to like the intent of the joke versus.
But we all have our different ways of getting to like getting to the funny.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you got to stumble your way a little bit more if you like something that's darker or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I know that when I go to Seattle, I'm gonna disappoint some people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the difference for me, like what I'm trying to get better at, is making it so that I am a person that people will at least try to understand. Even though my opinions and the way, like the jokes that I'm saying, aren't things that they agree with.
Okay.
So Seattle is a good place for me to have developed because I did that a lot. I was very focused on that, on like how do I say what I'm going to say, but make it so funny that they can't not laugh. But now it's like, how do I fix me in a way that's like more. How do I make it so that I'm like the as the, I don't know, messenger, I'm at least delivering the message in a way that like I still have to deliver the message that they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But
okay, here's a question though.
I don't want to get socked in the face while I do it.
Do you think now I feel like we're like the lights are off
like
and
when
like
Sagalo was here, was it funnier?
I don't know. It just takes turns like this.
Okay.
Like, and I love like talking about people's creative processes and like it's such a weird. I'm a student of stand up as much as like, and doing this weekly every time like I learned something. So it's like I picking your brain as somebody that's got 11 years in, like it's helpful to me. Yeah. So selfishly, if it's not funny, fuck the listeners on this one, but do you think some of the reason why the message and like what you're trying to say is less palatable because you put so much into this in your life? Like you as a person are sacrificing in order to get to wherever it is that you're trying to go, and as a result your happiness goes down in some ways.
No, that's not what it is. One, my happiness is way higher than it's ever been in my life.
Okay. I'm
finally around people that understand me.
Okay.
I moved to New York and I was around, this is an issue that I had in Seattle. I didn't have my people.
Okay.
The entire time I lived there. And I remember the last time we did this podcast, and it's really stuck with me. You said that like people were like, "Oh, you're going to interview Wilfred? Oh, that's going to be tough."
Yeah, you asked me who it was that said that.
Yeah.
I never told you. You forgot to ask me again. I'm hoping we could distract.
But
I think I understand.
But now that I'm here, it's like there are people that have the same passion as me, that left their entire lives. They have the same drive, and what's most important to them is being funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel that when I was in Seattle. I felt like there are a lot of people that are like, what's most important for them is to be the king of Seattle or something.
I think I've met the wrong people while I've been out here then, because I've met a lot of people that are getting in the way of what you're just talking about. Like, what
do you mean?
Just people that like they're there for the attention or they're there for the fame, and they're like all. And I even saw it at all levels. Like when I was fucking at the Village Underground, like there was a show I'm watching, and I'm like, this person shouldn't be on this fucking show. And like, you know, last night at New York Comedy Club, and like it's like almost every single show I've seen one person that's like there not for the reason that you just said.
Yeah.
And it seems like it just makes it harder for people like yourself, where it's like,
yeah, I think to answer your question, the thing that is getting in the way of like, what was, how did you phrase the question? It wasn't about
the sacrifice that you made.
Is that what's making?
Does that basically get reflected in your material? Like,
oh, I thought you were asking a different question. Because I thought you were asking why, like, kind of like, why isn't it connecting with certain people? Why isn't the material connecting with certain people? And the truth is, people don't think about comedy as much as comedians do. And also, another truth is people have a different definition of what comedy is supposed to achieve. Because a lot of people were brought into comedy through this whole, like, what Netflix has been doing. And so you have all these different comedians, like, you know, Hannah Gatsby or Chappelle, like, which are two people on the very opposite ends of the spectrum. But every comedian between Hannah Gatsby and Chappelle is someone that has an influence and brought people into the world of stand-up comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has their own definition of, like, oh, comedy's supposed to be what Hannah Gatsby does. Comedy's supposed to be what Taylor Tomlinson does, or Segura, or whatever. And so they show up to your show being like, well, why isn't this what the fuck I know comedy to be? And it's your job to figure out how to make them take that guard down. And, like, I know comedy on a level that is much deeper than 99% of the world. Because I study this, I do this. And the jokes that I write are for me to laugh at. Actually, this has not been, in the last month, I've been called, because I've been having a lot of tough conversations about, like, where my career is going and everything.
Yeah.
And the last month, I've been called a comics comic 3 times, which is a very complimentary thing to receive from comics, because I'm a comedian that comedians respect and comedians enjoy watching. But I want to also be an audience's comic.
Yeah.
I'd also like to be a TV show's comic or something. I want to be something that's more palatable. And being a comics comic, like Louis was a comics comic for years before he became the superstar, creep that he became.
Yeah.
But so there's a part of me that's like, all right, well, maybe I'm just ahead of the curve, or what I'm doing is going to develop an audience when the audience catches up to me. But there's no telling that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you think is holding you back from being the audience's comic? Because I feel like I toe that line too. Like, I don't ever want my shit to work in the front of the room and not work for the back. Like, that's a big thing for me. And it's, if I have a joke that's working for the front of the room and people, I'm like, go to the back and like somebody's giving me shit about it, like, I'm not doing that joke anymore. Like, even if it's killing, unless it's something I really like, I'm like, this, I mean, I'll check with people. I'll check with people that I respect or whatever. But do you think it's... I don't... It's a weird question to ask. I think I was a fan of comedy for a long time before I got into it. So I feel like I have a different perspective of, like, I was in the audience, and I remember being at Gabe Rutledge's show on New Year's Eve and, like, being like, I think I can do this. Like, this guys like locally are doing this. Like, I was going to Parlor, I was going to these clubs and seeing it. I saw Attell live, and like, that I knew I couldn't do. I would never like, but like seeing stuff at the Underground, I was like, this is more accessible, and like, it didn't seem as scary. But I had a different experience than someone that like wasn't an audience member and got into doing stand up. Like,
I don't know how many people weren't audience members before they got into it.
More than you'd think. That's a creepy, weird thing that I've like.
Because my understanding is most of the people that I have in my life, just we never ask each other how'd you get into it, because we all have the same story.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it for so long, and then I eventually did it.
Yeah. But what were you going to shows live?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, that's the difference. Like
I was like studying, not really studying, but I was like watching it and being like, "That's the fucking coolest."
The people that are going to live comedy like regularly, when they start doing stand up, they always like it clicks like just the mechanics and like the sort of stage presence, that type of stuff. It's because they've seen. It's not like this obscure thought, like they've seen it happen in real life. I mean, I was still terrified and like it.
Sure.
But yeah, I also think being in that audience, you see your material differently. You think about your material differently. Like you want those people, like you want them to laugh as much as you want the back of the room to laugh.
Oh, absolutely. I don't ever want to bomb.
Mm-hmm.
I've never bombed intentionally.
Never?
No. I've been bombing and been like, well, I guess we're going down this road.
Yeah.
Let's accept it.
Yeah.
But no matter how bad a room is, I'm always like, I can be the one to get this one going.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like of course. So I want my jokes to be something that every audience member gets, but you can't sacrifice who you are.
Yeah, not at the expense of your integrity.
Yeah, not at the expense of your integrity. Not at the expense of like I also can't write a joke that I'm not gonna laugh at. I don't have the ability to put out just like throw shit at the wall and then see if it works. Like if it's not funny to me, then I'm not gonna say it. And usually what's funny to me happens to be a little bit like it's actually all over the place, but like what the things I come up with are probably on the like they deal with like race and like social issues and whatever, and those are things that people sometimes aren't ready to talk about.
Yeah.
In a humorous way.
Mm-hmm. I mean I don't know, that's interesting. Do you
And when I talk about like when I say like people have an understanding of comedy that like is different, this one I got a message, big long message on Instagram the other day about one of the jokes that I posted, saying it's too soon. Let's see if let's pull it up.
Wait, was it the Subway stuff?
Hold on. Sorry, I just got a phone call from the manager. He never calls. Here. Oh yeah, I told you about that. The Asian girl that was like, this joke is too soon. Like, whenever you're perpetuating this idea that Chinese people are the problem or whatever, and like, I was going to message her back and I didn't interact with this, but I was just gonna be like, hey, I'm sorry that like you are going through all this trauma with the fact that there's like Asian violence that's occurring. It really sucks. I'm also going through that with you, but I'm also but what I'm more sorry about is that comedy isn't an outlet for you in this moment, and that comedy isn't something that's going to help you deal with this, and that sucks. But this is how I'm healing, so you can't fucking tell me how to deal with it. I'm making a joke. I'm making light of what's dark to me, because it's part of healing for me. That's how I deal with issues in my life. So, like, I think people don't think comedy is for that. They think comedy is just to like stick it to the man. Every joke that every word should be taken for its value, like for face value or whatever. There's irony to half of the shit that I'm saying on stage.
Yeah.
I don't hate my parents. I don't like think that they should be deported, but I have a joke about it.
Yeah.
You know. So, I don't know. That's what I was getting at before.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing when somebody has an issue with your material too, and if it's like a good joke, like it's just brutal.
But people now, because of the internet, they all everyone feels like that their voice is probably reflected something that reflects the mindset of hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And so I did a show in Pennsylvania, and fucking killer show. Every comedian had a great set. This dude afterwards goes up to the producer, and while he's close to us, and he was like, the guy was like, I just don't think it's appropriate to be for people to make jokes about religion or like these like racial things that are happening or politics or whatever. And I was just like, did you not see the other 250 people have a good time?
Yeah.
Like, maybe you need to be doing some reflecting and go home and be like, oh, why was everyone else having a good time about these topics and I wasn't? Mm-hmm. That's about like, so I don't know what the fuck I was getting.
No, that person, and then the person who does comedy that is concerned about what you have to say on stage, both of them, I think, should be burned at the stake. Like, I don't get it. If you were going on stage and have a microphone and saying what your truth is, and I want to do the same, neither one of us get to, like, I don't get to tell you what to do, and you don't get to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that. And then the audience member that voluntarily comes and says, this is what you can and can't joke about, but it's not in line with, like, the room decides. Yeah. Like, you don't get to pick yourself. And it's like, that's what we're battling as comedians. There's that guy, and then the person that does comedy that tries to tear other comics down.
I fell in love with this art form before I had heard of Patrice. But Patrice was one of the ones that like really solidified my like love and awe for stand-up, because he was a comic that said nothing that I agreed with, but I understood where he was coming from as a person. Yeah. Because he knew how to make jokes about like how he's like developing as a person, and like how like he has his problems with like, misogyny and all this shit. And the fact that he made me relate, comedy is supposed to make you relate to a person that you don't agree with. Like, it's supposed to, actually, no, comedy's supposed to make you laugh. That's number one. Yeah. But one of the things that I love about it is that it also it connects people. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's this girl on Hinge that I think on her profile it said something about like laughter is the shortest distance between two people. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's fucking cool. Yeah. Like, I swiped left. But who the fuck talks like that? Yeah. But it's like, I was just like, that is pretty cool that like, that is a cool thing to say. It's like, it's a way for like, you and I aren't the same person. And if there's something we don't agree on, but we laugh about it, that's us connecting on it. Yeah. Emotionally. I mean, I want to see Shane, because Shane talks about like, he's not a Trump guy, and people think that he's like this big Trump guy but he's like ironically about it. Yeah. And him and I we're not from the same place. He got canceled by Asians. I'm an Asian guy that's showing up to figure out what this guy's about, because he knows how to communicate through comedy. And I know how to listen through comedy.
So much to him just from like where I'm from geographically. Like I know, like I've heard people say this about the Philly guys, but they were all at the Underground like a couple nights ago, and I saw them all. Like those are all the dudes I went to high school with.
Oh yeah.
It's great, but like he's so
I just started watching
funny.
It's Always Sunny.
It's so funny.
And I'm like, fuck. Like I went to Princeton on Tuesday, and I did some, there were 2 Philly comics there, and we were just like, I was like, fuck. This is who I should have grown up in Philly. I don't know how the fuck I became a Philly person or like a Northeast person in Seattle.
Yeah.
You know what? I bet if I have this like tendency where or used to have this tendency where like I would just buck up against what's going on around me. See all of like the Seattle sheep, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be that. I try to be like this this dude that calls things gay. You know, and then I bet if I was in Philly, I'd be like a woke bitch.
Yeah, just to be against everything.
Like, you can't fucking say that.
Philly's ridiculous. Like, I always wonder too if like where you're from actually matters in terms of like how funny you can be.
It shouldn't. But I think that it is also like about how free you allow yourself to be. Like
how much you like let that guard down.
How much you're allowed to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I was allowed to be myself in Seattle. I tried my darndest.
Yeah.
And thankfully I also had like comics from other areas that I was in communication with on a regular basis, and that were like kind of like giving me like, you're good, you're doing this right.
You're like online long distance relationships with your comedian friends.
And I was on the road with comics and stuff, so I was like out and seeing what comedy's like outside of Seattle, and so I just like stuck to my guns, and that turned out to be the right thing to do. But Seattle wasn't a place where I was like, whoever said that I was prickly or like an asshole was probably right.
Yeah.
And it was just because I was uncomfortable. That's how, like, if a cat is completely uncomfortable in a house, it's an asshole of a cat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to be its best self.
Yeah.
And you seem happy out here. Like it's.
Yeah. I'm showing people my belly and shit, having them rub. Like I'm that kind of a cat now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not the one that's just hiding in the, underneath the couch.
I'm fucking under the couch here. Like it has been such a.
In New York?
Yes. Like it's been very like educational in terms of like comedy and like what I personally want, but I don't know. I've always gravitated to like club style comedy.
Yeah.
I don't know if like this environment is how I want to develop. Like I know a handful of like pretty fucking strong comics that developed in the Midwest and kind of by doing the road, and like it feels like high school in a lot of ways here, like where there's so much like that community aspect, and I'm 32, like I don't really like, I like keeping to myself, like I like my privacy and shit, and I don't necessarily think I want all these other people to know everything about my life.
See, I don't think that. I also don't adhere to the idea of like introvert and extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was an introvert. It turns out I just didn't like who I was around.
Yeah.
I think introvert and extrovert is kind of like about like, have you developed those muscles? And like we all develop muscles to like and whatnot, so we can like be a better runner, and we can like keep endurance up in a workout or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you're being a social human being, you can sustain that longer the more you do it.
Yeah. I just think I'm like in the Stanhope school. Like I don't think I really like people that much. Like it's I like doing comedy, like probably similar to like how you feel about your material. Like you need to find that funny too. Like I need a lot of freedom in this to feel comfortable in this. There feels like too much rigidity here for me.
Yeah.
And
I don't feel that. Yeah. But I mean, I felt that and I don't feel it anymore.
yeah.
I thought it existed here, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's more freedom.
And I could be wrong. Like it's
in my mind, there's more freedom to be myself, but that's because I just have felt more free.
Yeah.
That's anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that come to New York and quit comedy.
Yeah. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Like and
I think the last time we talked about this when I was in Seattle, I was like, don't move yet.
Yeah.
Because I personally, like at the time, I didn't know how in love with the game you were.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I don't know if you're in love with this, and you got to be in love with it.
Yeah.
But also there are people that quit comedy, and I'm like, man, that sounds pretty dope.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got you got a wife and kid and a house now. That sounds tight.
It's such this thing. I mean, I know we're just at an hour, and I actually got to run to a show too. But, it is a weird thought at times that like this entire thing, there could be that day where you stop, right? Like, and it's a terrifying thought. But like, I think almost anybody in comedy I've talked to, like, I mean, you can't go through this and not have that thought. But like, how much mental space and like how much? I mean, like you said, this is what you've dedicated your life to. Like, I don't even know how I would be. Life just seems like it would be so easy. Like
without it.
Yeah, but I think it would be worse. Actually,
I agree. I was. This is a fun final thought. It doesn't have to be the one. I went to. I was in Hartford, Connecticut, I think 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Mark Twain's house.
Okay.
And
did you go with Caitlin? Was that
nice? We did the tour, and there was this fun moment where the tour guide's this Mark Twain nerd, and she's like, obviously didn't cover any of the bad things that he did in his life, which I don't know what they are, but I'm sure they existed.
Yeah.
He probably hit his daughter a couple times. Yeah. There was this moment where she was talking about when James Joyce or Mark Twain went to Ireland and met up with James Joyce. They had lunch together. It was like it's noted in the I don't know, they tracked him or something like that. And she said, oh, what I would pay to get to listen to that conversation, to get to be around like two like smart, witty men. That conversation must have been so alive. And I, in that moment, realized, first of all, I used to be her. To be like, what I would pay to get to be around these comedians.
Yeah.
And then I realized I am around Mark Twain's and James Joyce's right now.
Yeah. I
get to be around the like comedians. We're not supposed to be up our own asses about how we're the thought provokers or whatever. And I don't want to believe that we are thought provokers. That's really like fucking stupid and like sad for society if that's the truth. Mm-hmm. But I do have very forward thinking and very complex thinking friends. I have friends that are as witty and smart as Mark Twain. Mm-hmm. I always talk about this in terms of dating. It's like, it's always been so hard. It's hard for me to find someone right now because my friends are the funniest people in the world.
Yeah.
Fucking, if you suck at telling stories, get the fuck out of my life.
Yeah.
Because my friends don't suck at that.
Yeah.
They tell stories and they're empathetic and they're vulnerable and they're like very open to life. So, I kind of derailed from the thought, but the what I'm getting at, I think, is that like that's what New York provides. Mm-hmm. That's what comedy provides. I'm happy with the life that I have. Sure, it's miserable because you're constantly needing external validation as a comedian, whether it's from an audience, whether it's from fellow comedians or a producer or the industry at large.
Yeah,
that stinks to have to live your life that way. But the beauty of it is all the stuff in between, where I get to I get to have lunch with comics all the time. And we just like have a fun. We just make each other laugh.
Yeah.
When I went to Princeton, I had such a good time with like some of the comics I was friends with. Some of them I'd never met, and we were doing a show out of college. And I fucking hate colleges.
Yeah.
It was the best fucking show. And we all just like drank beers like we were back in college. And I was like, this is the happy, like probably one of the best shows that I've been on in a while. And I was like, and I went to therapy the next day and we were talking about, happiness and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't think anyone in my family has ever experienced that amount of joy that I got to experience last night.
Yeah.
And last night is something that I get to experience on a regular basis.
Yeah, dude, that's how I felt at the stand the other night. It's so hard to like admit this too, because I said all the things about New York or whatever, but like I did a show at the stand and I followed Ari and Norman and Taylor was there like watching, and like I cared more about eating it in front of Taylor because I was going to have to hear about this for like every time I saw Taylor or whatever. And I got the tape and it like everything, it wasn't like, I wasn't as loose as I've ever been on stage. I knew that was going to be the case, but like I hit all my beats. I did everything. I killed. Like I had a good set, and it was like just to be able to do that in that space on that show in front of my buddy and like another guy that like I mean I started at Tony V's with him, and like before I went on stage I was like kind of like, for me the stand's a big deal. Like it's a just with like DeStefano on the wall and like the respect I have for him as a comic and like that, and Louis, and like just that room is very special to me. Sure. And like I was sitting there and like before I was going up, like I was looking at the floor and I just like had like this weird out of body experience where like I remembered what it was like of how sad I was before I got into comedy, and like how depressed I was and how hopeless I felt in life, like directionless. And I like realized like where I was and like and in the amount of time that had taken. Like it feels like a lifetime, but it really hasn't been that long. And fuck, man, like it was unreal. Like I forget so much in comedy how sad life was before it. Like
it's like if I wasn't doing comedy, I wouldn't be accomplishing goals on such a regular basis. I wouldn't be. Granted, I don't take them into account most of the time. I'm like, so what? I got like one of the things that I did. I was hosting at the Cellar. This was like I want to say like 4 months ago, and I just had a miserable time, and I was just like fucking like didn't enjoy it, and then like Che dropped in, and he respectfully only did 5. And then Aziz dropped in and did an hour after a show that was already an hour and a half. After like the show started 45 minutes late, didn't get home till 2:30 a.m. And I was just like having a bad time. And then I stopped. And was like, wait, isn't this my dream? Like it's my dream come true to have done what I just did.
Yeah.
Why am I being a bitch about this? And it like it doesn't snap you in, but it makes me think about things in a different way now.
Oh yeah.
Like I get to do shit on a level that people. There's always I have to remind myself. Someone wants my life.
Yeah.
Like so bad, and I should be happy with what's happening.
Yeah.
So.
No, but at the same time, like. It's fucking 3 o'clock in the morning.
It's
and you had
3 o'clock in the morning. I got other shit tomorrow, and I just got a rejection from this like thing that I was hoping to get.
Yeah,
that was gonna set my life in the right direction. It's great. It makes me happy. It sucks too because you have to take L's all the time.
Yeah,
but that's
part of it. Though.
That's part of it. That's what it wouldn't be great if you didn't take somebody else.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, just want to say one more time. If you like this episode, hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the notifications bell, the top right corner, so you don't miss our content. And if you got any questions or comments, don't forget to throw them in the comment section. Doing all that helps us with the YouTube algo. And where can people find your stuff?
Just at Wilfred Padua. I think my website is wilfredpaduacomedy.com, but I don't update. If you just want to look at cool pics of me and this like dope Squarespace layout that I chose, fucking hit me up there.
There you go.
But yeah, Wilfred Padua on everything.
Do you get anything off your pod? Like, is it worth just the old episodes that you did?
No.
Okay. Well, dude, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
appreciate it as always. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure rate and review us. Follow us on Instagram at FNF Pod. We're gonna leave you with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. My wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to my wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to my wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to my wave